Okay, so welcome to this information session for our multi-master's degree in International Environmental Management. This is a dual degree that we have here in the Penn MES program with Mines Paris Tech, a university in Paris, and their masters in International Environmental Management. And so in this presentation, I'll talk to you a little bit about their degree program, talk about how it works alongside our program, some of the logistics behind that. And then, as I said, we'll have time for questions at the end. So this program involves, as I said, the degree from the MES program here at UPenn, and you get a master's in environmental management from Mines Paris Tech. So you get both degrees. This program uniquely kind of brings students together from across the world. Students who enter into the program in Paris already have a master's degree, or like you will be, they're working towards their master's degree. And they are from a variety of different fields, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. And so then this brings together a very unique group of students in a very rigorous, intensive program in Paris. And this program prepares students for the jobs that involve managing complex international environmental challenges. So if you're thinking you might be interested in working on environmental issues, particularly at a global scale, maybe working outside of the US, maybe wanting to work between countries, then this would be a fantastic program for you to think about. The program is hosted within ISIGE, which is an institute at Mines Paris Tech dedicated to sustainable development and the environment. And so some of the strengths of a program like this come from their strong networks. The program is very embedded with a number of corporate and industrial partners, both in Paris and beyond. And those partners are also very involved in the program design. They have some people come and teach in the program, much like we do here in MES, where we have instructors coming from professional fields to teach. They also have a very strong alumni network because of the program's history and those networks that they have with their corporate and industry partners. The academic side of the program involves a lot of interactive teaching. And again, it's very cross-disciplinary. It draws on ideas from multiple fields for tackling issues related to environmental management. Classes are pretty small, I think typically between about 15 and 25 students, although I'll let the students who've been through the program comment on that in a moment here. And there's also personalized supervision, particularly for the project that you'll undertake as part of the degree. As suggested by the name, the program has an international outlook and it has an international reputation. With a dual degree from our MES program here at Penn and the Masters in Environmental Management from Mines Paris Tech, you will have a very strong resume as you venture into these fields. As part of the program, you complete a professional thesis. Again, I'll talk more about that in a moment. And those tend to focus on topics at the heart of economic and business management issues around environmental issues. So a quick note on the timeline before I hand over to some of our students to talk about their experience in the program. The program in Paris is a 12-month program. It runs from January through to December. So from January to mid-May, you are in classes in an intensive 5-month academic program in Paris, focused on both theoretical and applied training. I'm going to talk more about what this program looks like after we've heard from some of the students who've been through the program. This is then followed by a 5 to 6 month professional period. So you're completing an internship with a partner company that may be in Paris, it could be elsewhere. And during this time, your thesis is prepared. And this professional thesis is written. You give an oral defense in Paris in early December, and this is the same thesis that you can use towards the capstone requirement for the MES degree. So in a moment, I'll go into a lot more detail about exactly what the program looks like and how things break down. But before we do that, I'd like to hear from some of the students who went through the program over the last few years. So I can see how Cheng and Chi are both on the call here. And so I wondered if each of them could just take a few minutes to share a little bit about their experience going through the program, maybe what they enjoyed about it, some program highlights, any advice you might have for students who are considering this program. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second here and hand over to those students. So Hao-Cheng, I'm going to pick on you because your camera is on. Do you want to kick us off and share a little bit about your time in the
Yeah,
program?
sure. Hello, everyone, and nice to see you again, Siwan. My name is Hao. I joined the IEM last year, and I completed my defense in the end of 2024. And right now, I work at the Chargeur Group as the carbon footprint engineer in a region called Picardy. It's in the northern part of France. So, well, in terms of this program, what I enjoy most is the kind of immersive cultural experience because you are spending a whole year in France. You have a lot of experience of expanding your network with your classmates and also from a strong alumni, the strong alumni network because École des Mines is one of the toppest engineering school in France. It has very good reputation and it is very recognized. And in terms of the professional experience, in the end, as Siwan just introduced, we have to do an internship. And at least in my class, we all ended up in very good companies. And to me personally, it was a very good experience as well. For example, I did my in a company called Rexel. It's a French B2B distributor of electronic devices, and I spent 6 months in the headquarters. And I learned a lot. I met a lot of people, and Chichi did her internship in Celine. So I do not know a lot about fashion, but even me know it is a very good company, and maybe Chichi can bring it up later. And during the studies, we have a lot of, well, not only in the classroom, we have a lot of field studies. For example, we visited some factories for recycling sites. I'm sorry about my English, haven't been using it for a while. And and also we visited some rooftop, the construction sites for rooftop, how do you say it in English? Again, I forgot it. Rooftop solar panels, yeah. And we spent one whole week in Italy. It was on a city planning project. So as you can see, this program not only have in-class like theoretical sessions that a lot of people who work in maybe the European Parliament and also in private companies are invited to give their lecture. There are also a lot of opportunities to really visit different sites that are related to sustainability, that are related to a job that you might be willing to do in the future. So yes, in summary, I enjoy this experience because it has a combination of what is theoretical and what is practical, and also it offers a unique cultural experience and also a very good opportunity to expand your network in a European country. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Hal, for sharing that. Yeah, that's really helpful for students to hear that kind of personalized experience. And I can vouch for Hal's final thesis project. It was excellent and yeah, really benefited by working with that company. Great. Chichi, nice to see you. Do you want to share a little bit about your experience in the program?
Yes, of course. Hi, Siobhan. Hi, everyone. Long time no see. So I joined the program the same time as Hao did. And right now I am in China because I'm not planning to work this year. I have some interviews going on, but right now I'm just at home because I've been abroad for so long. So I just want to take a break. And for me, I highly recommend the program because you talked about the academic and professional aspect. And for experience, personally, I am a person that like to travel around and to have different experience in different places. So if you're that kind of person, I would recommend you to join the program. For my internship, as Hal mentioned, that I did my internship at Celine, it's a luxury brand under LVMH, and I was doing sustainable architecture procurement. It's not related to the product itself, but it's sustainability work related to the stores that we can see on the streets and in the mall. It's a brand new experience to me, but I learned a lot and I've gained a lot from the program and the internship itself. And later on, I was at WTO, the World Trade Organization in Switzerland. As I mentioned, that I like to travel around. And I spent half a year there, and right now I am in China. I recommend the program because the school is located in like the center of Paris, and it's right beside to the Luxembourg Park, and you can experience like the Paris style and just learning in France. And I think it's a really good experience. And one thing I want to kind of warn you guys is that the coursework is super intense because you have to finish like a lot of courses in 5 months. So you have to go from 9 to maybe 6 every day, from Monday to Friday. So that's a heads up. And I think that's all. If you have questions, just reach out. I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chi Chi. Yeah, it's a good preparation for life after graduation, right? Working 9 to 6 and kind of full time on your studies. And yeah, I also learned a lot from your final project, Chi Chi, and from kind of watching your presentation of that. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful to hear a little bit from some students who've been through the program. I'm going to continue with the presentation with a few more details, and then in a moment I'll ask some of our students who have recently applied to the program to talk a little bit about the application process. So I'm going to share my screen again and go back through the next few slides here. Okay. So for the degree in Paris, the first 5 months, like we said, are academic based, kind of mostly in the classroom, although there are some trips involved. This period of time that Chi Chi was just referring to is divided into 5 main blocks. Each of them has a sort of more theoretical part and a more applied part through case studies, projects, and workshops. And so the first block, environmental challenges, thinks about challenges that we are facing today from an environmental and a social perspective, and how kind of different enterprises are organizing themselves to respond to these challenges. The second block, the frameworks, looks at policies and legal frameworks that companies are adopting for sustainable development. The third block, called tools and implementations, looks exactly at that, the tools and the methods that decision makers are being used, things like LCA, footprint calculations, and so forth. The fourth block, management and co-construction, looks at the transition and management of green projects, and thinking about kind of the transition process for different industries. And then the fifth block, perspective, thinks about looking forward. What are we looking to in the future? What are the trajectories and how are we going to meet those? In particular, they also explore the climate biodiversity nexus and think about kind of some of the levers that are moving the circular economy as well. So that's a bit of a breakdown of the curriculum that you can expect in those first 5 months, and information from the website and from info sessions that the Paris program runs will kind of go into that in more detail if you're interested. As part of those 5 months, you also work on a variety of projects and case studies. These are just some examples of those. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can have a look at those, and these slides and the presentation will be on the website if you want to look into those in more detail. Importantly, at the bottom, it refers to some of the tools and kind of skills that you're going to build through working on these projects. And those are tools and skills that I know both Hal and Chi Chi have used beyond the program as well. And then after those initial sort of 5 months in the classroom, you have what they refer to as a professional training period. And so this is a 5, typically 6-month period from end of May through December, where you develop a project that eventually unfolds into your professional thesis as a culmination of the program. And these projects are carried out with industry company partners And those projects have value for those companies as well. So the work that both Hao and Chi were describing that they completed in their final projects was very valuable for the companies they were working for, not just for their thesis. During this period, you also receive support from an academic mentor. So yes, you're working with your company, but you have someone from the program, whether it be Kathy or someone else, who will also be mentoring you through that. This year, for the first time, the program does now have work-study contracts. And so students in this program are eligible for a work-study contract after 1 month of full-time study. Those work-study contracts allow you to work for a company up to 2 days a week while you are going through those initial 5 months. And then you can continue working for that company into this professional period. So if you are under one of those contracts, then you complete this 5 to 6 month period with that company. If you're not on a work-study contract, then you identify a company that you will move to, whether it be a company, public institution, NGO, in the form of an internship or job contract for those 5 to 6 months. And that's the model that both Hao and Chi went through. And then at the end of this period, you submit and defend a thesis. That defense is done in front of a committee in Paris. We then do a much smaller kind of online defense with myself and any readers that have been involved from the Penn side. And that thesis also is then formatted into your capstone for the MES project. And these are just some examples of the types of fields and topics and projects that students have worked on through that professional training period. So again, I'm not going to read all of those now, but you can come back to these slides or the presentation if you want to look at some examples of those. And these are some of the partners that students have worked with. Again, this is not an extensive list. I know some companies were mentioned that are not on here, but again, just some examples of some of the partnerships that the program in Paris has. So that's a bit of an overview of what your time in Paris will look like. I'm now going to talk about how this fits in with your MES degree. So we can transfer, or we can double count, I should say, your work in Paris towards 2 CUs towards your MES degree, which means that you only need to complete 10 CUs with us, and then we double count those last 2. Those 10 CUs must be completed before you go to Paris. Technically, you could come back and complete 1 or 2 CUs after the program, but the typical timeline is to complete them before you go. So that would include ProSeminar, our required introductory course, the data analytics requirement, all your foundation courses, and 4 of your 5 concentration courses. The 2 CUs that we then double count from your time in Paris cover the capstone seminar, because you do your capstone as part of the time in Paris, and 1 of your concentration courses. And as I said, you then write your capstone based on your thesis from Mines ParisTech. And in most cases, it just requires maybe a little bit reformatting, maybe adding a few things that are required for our program, but the same project is used for both. So these are some sample timelines of what that might look like to go through the program. I emphasize sample. There is flexibility in exactly what courses you complete when. This top table shows you what it might look like if you start with us in the fall. So you might take 3 courses in the fall and the spring. You know, these don't necessarily have to be 1 foundation, 1 concentration. This is just a sample. Another 3 in the spring, a course in the summer, and another 3 in the fall to get you to your 10 CUs before you head off to Paris in the January. We then enroll you in a 2-credit independent study course here at no cost to you, which allows us to pull in those 2 credits from the Paris program. You then are doing your internship through the summer and the fall. And in the fall, you would need to enroll in ENVS 9900, which is our master's thesis course here at Penn. This does have a small cost associated with it. It's 15%, 15% of the tuition rate. And this allows you to then maintain your student status here at Penn so that you can then graduate from the program. You don't need to be enrolled in anything in the summer because there's no requirement to be an active student in the summer. If you started with us in the spring, then this is what your timeline would look like. You'd need to kind of load up on courses a little bit in that first year to make sure you got your 10 CUs done before going. Like I said, there is some flexibility. You could come back to us after your internship in Paris and complete a final CU. Yeah, that's kind of a point that we can discuss individually when we do advising. Like I said, just samples of what it might look like to go through the program. So a few notes on applications, and then I'm going to hand it over to our current students to talk a little bit about this. They updated the website a bit this year. This is what it now looks like, the application page. Applications open in January each year, so they will open in early January 2026. For those of you who are hoping to start in January 2027. You're encouraged to apply as early as possible. The applications do stay open normally until the summer, but you are encouraged to apply because they do limit places. And so if they reach that capacity, then applications will close. The initial selection is based on an application portfolio that you submit. And then if you're selected from that, there's a written test and an interview that are conducted. And then you'll hear a few weeks after that whether you've been accepted to the program. So before I talk a little bit about some of the other details, I'm just going to pause here and hand it over to Gabrielle and Vanshika, who are two current MES students who have been accepted into the program, are heading to Paris in January. And I wondered if each of them could just briefly share a little bit about their experience with the application process, because you've been through it recently and know what it looks like at the moment. So Gabrielle, I'm going to hand over to you first just to share a little bit, and then we'll hand over to Vanshika.
Yeah, of course. I was thinking I could talk a little bit about the application itself and what they're looking for, the different documents you have to submit. And then if Vanshika, you want to talk about like the process in the interview, I think that would be a good way to split it up. So pretty much the year that I submitted, and I would recommend always looking at their website to be sure that you have everything that they're asking for. There were 7 documents that were required to be submitted as part of the application. That included the application form, which just had like general personal information, educational background, questions. They asked 3 motivational questions, which are kind of like short answer essays that you submit as a separate document as well. A resume, which is pretty self-explanatory. Your academic transcripts and diploma are 2 of the documents that they ask for as well. Proof of English language ability and a national identity card. I want to note with the academic transcripts and diploma specifically, sometimes the wording on the application documents that they give you can be confusing because they're used to applicants who have a master's degree already. So I was like in constant, I emailed the program administrator a lot during the application process, which I recommend doing to make sure you get everything right and that you're just being as thorough as possible. To make sure that I was okay to get my undergraduate academic transcripts and diploma sent in, and that would be sufficient for them. And then the other thing you need are 3 letters of recommendation, which are a little bit different than how they're normally imagined. They have like a form already like developed that you send to a person to fill out and then email back. So my biggest recommendation during the application process itself would be to give yourself plenty of time to get these things pulled together. Like trying to get an online copy of my diploma from my undergrad took a lot of kind of heckling and trying to get back into my undergrad's like online login and having to order those things and make sure they had enough time to come. So that would be my biggest recommendation for the actual application process. And then if anyone had any questions about it, I'm more than happy to help out during the application itself if you want to reach out. And then I'll pass it to Vanshika.
And just before you pass over, thank you, Gabrielle, for that. That's really helpful. And I will, after this meeting ends, share contact details for the students who've been here if you want to get in touch with them. And of course, we'll have time for questions at the end. I do want to also note that Kathy also told me, maybe because she had gone back and forth with you about the transcripts, that you can get a copy of your unofficial transcript from Penn, which will show what courses you've taken so far during your time with us. And you can also submit that as part of this. They do, they have an agreement with us. They know that you'd be coming without that master's degree. So thank you for highlighting that, Gabrielle, because I think it can be confusing on the application. But You don't have to completely finish here. You can't finish here until you go there because we're counting part of that towards your degree. So yeah, don't be dissuaded by that. If you're coming from our program, they'll know kind of the setup and be willing to accept your undergrad documents and or the unofficial transcript from Penn. So I'm glad you highlighted that. Thank you. Okay, over to Vanshika.
Awesome, yeah. Thank you for giving such a thorough overview of the application process. So the next step, kind of once you've sent in your documents to MEAN, is they'll reach out to you to schedule an interview time. So I think if I remember the timeline correctly, they had reached out in April after reviewing our documents. And if you're selected for an interview, you'll be given a time slot. So my interview was on April 30th, and it's usually scheduled taking into consideration both Paris and Philly time. So it was very much in the afternoon. So don't worry about any time zone issues there. So they were very mindful about scheduling the interview. And the interview, I think when I got the information email for the interview, I was a little intimidated because it was a 30-minute interview. It was super structured the way they described it to you. So they said the 30 minutes would be taken to talk about your experience, your interest in the program, what you plan to do for your capstone. And then the next portion of the interview was they would send you an article the day before the interview. You'd be responsible for kind of reading it through, thinking about implications and things like that. And they would ask you a few questions based on that article. So it's kind of like a technical interview portion of that. So it seemed a little intimidating and daunting going into it, but honestly, they were all super, super friendly. There were 3 people in the interview. I think there was one professor from the program and 2 people who were, so Kathy was in the interview, and there was another person who's the coordinator as well. So it was kind of like a panel interview that you had online. And yeah, I think it went super, super smoothly. They were super friendly. They kind of gave you a lot of room to share about your experience. And then also ask questions towards the end as you're, having a open discussion with them. And then the Q&A for us, it was an article based on nature-based solutions. And it was kind of helpful because we were taking a class that was also related to that at the same time. So we had a lot of information going into it. But yeah, they send it to your inbox prompt the day before. So you'll have about 24 hours to do some research as well. So I would suggest maybe taking some time to thoroughly read the article, make some notes on the side if you need to, and do some additional research just to get an idea of what the article is about and kind of form opinions, because they will ask for your opinions as well after reading the article. So yeah, that was kind of the entire interview. I don't think there was anything that was kind of a curveball question that they threw at me. So they were, it was pretty much about how your experience has been at Penn, the kind of classes that you're taking, and to kind of justify why you're interested in studying in Paris, which I since we've heard from our from the students who've done the program in the past, there's a lot of fun reasons to go to Paris, the international aspect, and getting kind of exposure to more in-field and different kind of topics from the Penn program as well. So yeah, they'll kind of ask you to talk about that a little bit more and then go a little bit further into your thesis project as well. So if you have kind of a general idea, I know it is contingent on the internship you end up securing after the 5-month training period. But if you have a general idea, that'll kind of help them understand what direction you want to take your thesis in. And then kind of after the interview, they get back to you, I think within a month, so that you can kind of start the process for applying for a French visa. They give a bunch of resources that you can read, look into, and they're pretty accessible via email if you have any questions about applying for a visa after that. So that's the process we're going through right now.
Great, thank you so much, Vanshika. That's really helpful to hear from both of you kind of how the application has gone, and thank you for breaking it down like that, kind of talking both about the initial application and then what the interview actually looks like. That's really helpful for students to hear. I'm going to flip back to the presentation. I just have a few final slides, and then we will pause and open it up for questions. So if you do have questions for Vanshika or Gabrielle about the application, or if you have any questions for Hao Cheng or Chi Chi about being in the program, we'll get to those in just a moment. So I'm just going to run through a few final slides, a little bit more information I wanted to share. So the first is a little bit about tuition for the program. The tuition is 14,000 euros plus an $800 registration fee. If you are a domestic student here in the US and you have federal student loans, you can apply those towards the Paris program. And we can talk more about that if you have questions about that, but that is possible. That tuition doesn't include your travel to and from Paris, your accommodation in Paris, a bit like here. Your tuition doesn't include your apartment, and any transportation you might need while you're around Paris. However, it does include travel expenses associated with the field trips that you take as part of the program. The university does not offer scholarships, but as I mentioned earlier, the program does now fit with work study contracts. And so that is a possibility if you wanted to look into earning some money while you are there. And so in addition to the many great reasons that the students have already given us about why you might want to pursue this dual degree, I just wanted to give you a few facts about kind of the graduation success of the students from this program. Over the last few years, they've seen more than 70% of students hired before they graduate, so before that December graduation, with 90% being in employment within 3 months of graduation from the program. And graduates work in a real range of places, from very large companies to small startups, consultancies, think tanks, NGOs, local government, national government, etc. And not just in Paris, but back here in the US and around the world. And in various sectors as listed there. So you can see how this degree can really set you up for success in the professional field. There's a link on this website here to some student and alumni stories if you want to read more about those. And so if you are interested in pursuing this program, the first step is to come to this information session today, so you can tick that off your list. The next thing would be to arrange a one-on-one meeting with me before you apply. Now, applications will open in January, so you've got a few months to still think about this, but it's helpful to me, again, because as I indicated earlier, we'll need to think about how we map out your MES courses in order that you are set up to go to Paris the following January. So do please arrange a one-on-one meeting with me if you are going to apply to the program. The dual degree webpage will be updated pretty soon. We've made some changes to our curriculum recently, so has the Paris program, so we'll get that all updated. The recording of this session will also be uploaded there. And then again, there's the link to the Meme Paris website, which looks like this for the program. They have a brochure there you can download, and typically they hold their own information sessions as well in the spring that will be advertised on their website. And as Gabrielle said, you can certainly reach out to their administrator and they'll be very helpful in responding to you. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording here and wrap up the formal part of the presentation, and then we can start a Q&A time.